I'm so excited to talk to you about personal finance, finding financial freedom, everything in between. And you are a self-described debt-free millionaire.
Yes.
Tell us how you got there.
It's kind of strange to hear someone else say it, right? To say I'm a debt-free millionaire.
And I love how you said yes.
Yes, I am, right? And, to be honest, it took me a little bit to claim that. Mm-hmm. But what I found is, going back to 2016 is when I started my personal finance journey. And the original impetus of me going into personal finance was just to become debt-free, particularly student loans, right? And so at the time I had $72,000 of student loan debt, and I had mortgages and all of the bills that everyone typically has, and I was incredibly overwhelmed. And so I started on the path of teaching myself personal finance, and I actually ended up paying off the student loans in about a year, which was wild.
How did you do that? Because let's just back up for 1 second.
Yeah.
You said $72,000.
$72,000.
How'd you do it?
So, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about some of my other philosophies around this, but just breaking it down into smaller chunks. And so the original thought process was, okay, $72,000 is a lot of money, overwhelming for most people. And at the time, my salary was about $50K. So that's a lot of money to try to put away in a short amount of time. But I said, let's figure out a goal that would be reasonable and a little bit of a stretch. And so I decided some basic math, working my way backwards. $72,000, what would that look like if I could do that in 2 years, which is hyper aggressive, right? So $72,000 divided by 2 years is $36,000 a year, which is still a lot of money, right? And said, let's keep going backwards. So I divided it by each month, and it was about $3,000 per month. And then I was like, okay, let's just keep going until I feel like there's a reasonable number. And so $3,000 divided by 4 weeks is about $750 a week. And then divided by 7 days was $100 a day. And I said, okay, Bernadette, am I smart enough to at least attempt, just attempt $100 per day? And it's not, I could do it every day, but like some days that might come easily and some days that might come really hard. And just working towards that started my journey on paying off the $72,000, and then combining that with all of the things that you hear in personal finance, like side hustles and, figuring out where to streamline your expenses, budgeting, all of those things came into play too.
What I really like from that is the number 72,000. When you hear that, you must have been like, oh my goodness, this is impossible. How am I ever going to get this? But then when you divide it, peel the layers back, divide it, it sounds way more tangible.
Way more tangible.
And I think that brings us to why I really want to talk to you today, and that is your famous $1 rule that you swear by. Can you explain this rule?
I love that you called it famous.
Well, I already texted my mom and sisters about it and said, I'm going to share the story I shared with you before. I'm moving it to a new apartment, and I texted my new roommates, my sisters, and I said, hey, listen, we need a new couch. We're doing the $1 rule because it sounds like a good investment. So tell us about it.
Yes. So I did a twist on the classic cost per wear, which a lot of people know is basically, take an item, divide it by the number of times you think you're going to use it, and that's going to be the dollar amount. But I took that a step further to say, you know what? Let's make this really easy for anyone, even if you're not good at math, right? And say, okay, let's do $1 per use. If you find an item that you want to buy, regardless of how expensive it is, if you think you can reasonably use it to the point where it's $1 per use, don't feel guilty. Go and buy the thing. Don't overthink that, and use that energy instead to focus on kind of bigger ticket decision making, right? So in your perfect example, right, how much do you think couches, cost in the range that you're looking for?
Probably between like $1,000 to $3,000, which sounds like a lot for a couch, but you're on it every day.
Exactly.
Multiple people every day.
Exactly, right? So think about that. Let's just use the $1,000, which is kind of the target that I had when I bought my last couch too. Feeling like you're spending $1,000 on one thing, just the average person, especially right now with inflation and all the stuff that's going on in the economy, that feels like a lot of money to spend, and you can feel like maybe I shouldn't buy that. But if you say, all right, well, $1,000, there's 365 days in a year, right? Dollar per day, in 3 years, it's paid off. It's paid off. And is it worth it for me to have a nice couch that I can sit on and watch my shows every day, feel really comfortable? Is that worth $1 per day? If the answer is that sounds like a no-brainer, then go ahead and buy it.
And if you have a few roommates, you could divide that up. So it could be 25 cents a day.
Yes. So I love that, because you're thinking, okay, now how do I expand this rule? But it's a great starting point. But also you could say, all right, maybe we up the budget a little bit. Maybe say, oh, let's go to $3,000, because between the three of us, it's $1 per day per person.